Hey everyone, welcome to the video on intelligent dictionaries, IDICTs for short. Today we're going to be covering a selection of North American Indigenous language dictionaries. I'm going to be focusing on the web accessible ones, so we're not going to be covering specifically ones that have to do with phone applications, although this is going to be a relatively high level overview, and so the sort of underlying principles should be the same regardless. We're going to take a look at both basic and intelligent dictionaries and talk about how they differ and the advantages and disadvantages of both. I'll be talking a bit about the underlying language models or lack thereof for each resource. And I'll be going through a little bit of an example of how to use each dictionary. Of course, this isn't going to be a complete overview. I'm not going to show you every single possible way to use these dictionaries, but I will be showing you some things that you can do and the general concepts of both basic and intelligent dictionaries so that we can talk about them in a meaningful way. So to start, what we have here is the online Cree dictionary, or the Nahiel Masnaigan. The online Cree dictionary is a very popular resource. It has an application for both Android and iOS, although it's only sometimes available on the app stores. So when you come to this website, what you see is an intro thing. You click, yes, I want to start searching, and then you're brought to this page. We have a little navigation menu or navigation bar here where we can go home. We can learn and use Cree syllabics. There's some links to other resources. There is a syllabic converter for a couple different dialects. There's a submit a word page, which allows you to submit a word that is not in the dictionary. And then some resources for learning Cree. This is pretty common among dictionaries, to have a sort of section that allows you to submit words and then also links to other resources. We also have this virtual keyboard. We can see here that we have different dialect options, and here we have Musqueam, Saskatchewan Plains, and Woods Cree. They each come with different keyboard layouts. You can see the Musqueam ones are this sort of syllabic system here. Saskatchewan is like that, and the Woods is like that. So if you wanted to, you could then click on these and you can see it types it up there. But you can't just type directly from your keyboard. If we don't want to look at this and we don't want to use the syllabics, we can actually just get rid of that. So now in the search menu, what we have is show virtual keyboard. That brings back that thing that we were just looking at. An advanced search option, general options, and a tutorial on how to search. We're also given an input language, so we can say that we want to search for an English term for something in the standard Roman orthography, which is the way of writing Cree that doesn't use syllabics, or if we want to write in Cree syllabics. Now you have to actually select which of these you want to use, because if you don't, it doesn't auto-detect them. So let's say I choose Roman orthography by mistake and I want to look up the word dog. If I write D-O-G and then search that, you can see it loads and we have no results come up. If I choose the correct input language though and search for dog, when it loads, you see we have basically a bunch of words that the definitions have the word dog in them. If we wanted to search for a word that we know is Cree, but that we don't know the definition of, let's say a tim, which is the word for dog here, we can just write that. You can see it auto-completes, so it gives you a tim, a tim, a tim, a tim. These are 4 different dictionaries. That's what the letters in parentheses mean. This is the Alberta Elders. This is the I'm actually not 100% sure what the EC one is. The Cree Words is the Eric Wolvengray, and the MD is the Musqueam Dictionary. But then it also gives you other words that start with atim. So you have atimao, atimeo, and again atimeo, but from different dictionary. So let's click this one here and we search. We can see here it gives us, again, a list of words. It doesn't only give us these ones that are just a Tim. It gives us, again, everything that has a Tim in the Cree word. So it gives us this sort of preverb and this verb phrase. It gives us command forms. So one thing worth looking at is the notation here. So for some words, they have a Tim, which is the sort of base form, the head word, we'll call it, the dictionary entry. It tells you here that its plural is atimwak. This dictionary gives you a syllabics, regardless of how you look it up. And then in green here, we have a word class. So in Cree, this is an animate noun. Then we have our actual definition, the dictionary that it's from. This indicates that there is a picture available, that there is sound available, a recording of the word, and then it looks like a video is available. So let's click on that. So again, here if we hover over this, it says click to play sound. I don't think that this will pick up the sound if I do it, but if you wanted to listen to it, you could click that. Here we're given a bit more information. Source from the Alberta Elders Cree Dictionary. It's the language is Cree. Keywords, dog, sled, and hunt. So these are words that are related to the entry, but are not the entry in and of themselves. And then there are some more related words here, atimos, which is like a little dog. These features here are very likely specifically coded by hand. So somebody went through and related the fact that dog is related to the words dog, sled, and hunting, and atimos, and okasichikomes. This was probably a pretty laborious process, although some dictionaries have that information in them. Anyways, if we go back to the search page, however, what I'm going to do is look up the word dogs. So you can see again, it gives us an autocomplete here, and once it's done searching, it gives us a set of words. So here we have the verb he or she has dogs or horses. Next we have she pursues someone stubbornly, or he or she dogs someone. But we don't actually have that plural form of dogs, which was a dimwak. We have dog sled. We have, again, dog sled. We have the term dogs here, but it's part of the verb. And so what's going on here is that the dictionary is actually searching for the string, or the collection of letters DOGS in the definitions. So unless there's an entry that someone has coded, a timwak, followed by the entry DOGS, it's not going to pick that up. The dictionary does, however, notice that dogs is in all of these words. Chances are, though, if someone is wanting to know how to say dogs in Cree, they're not looking to find these words, they're looking to find a timwak. Again, if we just look at the word dog in Cree, what we find is the entry dog. That's fine because there's a dictionary entry, a tim, that has a corresponding definition, dog. But then we also have here, it tells us that the plural is a timwak. The plural of dogs is a timwak, and yet when we search up dogs, we don't get that form. This is sort of a hallmark of what we're going to call a basic dictionary. Basic dictionaries are essentially word lists with associated definitions. And searching through them basically requires you to be able to know how to search, know how the words are written, and what forms are going to be in there. It would be like if in an English dictionary, if you looked up runs, nothing came up. But if you looked up run, you got a definition that is he walked fast or moved quickly. So this is somewhat of an issue, particularly for polysynthetic languages like most of the ones in North America, because there are millions of possible verb forms. In Cree, you can use preverbs, which are parts of a word that come before the verb stem, and it's all considered part of one word. And there's hundreds of these preverbs, which means every verb form, in addition to having all of the I did, you did, he or she did, etc. forms, also has a version of all of those with every single preverb. So in a basic dictionary, the only way to get something set up where any possible form will give you the right definition would require you to have a super long word list of every possible form in a language. It would sort of be like trying to list every possible sentence in English. It's not really feasible. That's basically too long, arguably infinite. So it poses a problem for basic dictionaries that don't have a language model. Let's take a look at a similar dictionary. Let's take a look at this is just Dene, but I believe it's actually for Dene Sultane and Dene Yatti. It just says Dene though. This is a dictionary. It's quite different. It has a little bit more going on. So you can see that there's a browse alphabetically function, which is really nice. The online Cree dictionary did not have that function. So if we click on the home menu, if we just wanted to find all the words that begin with A, I think we might be able to search A like that, but it's going to take a really long time. Even in its advanced search options, the most that you can do is specify what language, specify a word category or a register, a way of using it. So is it daily speech? Is it a technical term? We have these semantic categories here. You can search by keywords, but you can't browse alphabetically, which is really a pretty common way that people interact with paper dictionaries. So it's nice to see in this First Voices system that they're giving you that option. You can also search by category, so you can look at all the animals, body parts, etc. Right now, I believe we're just looking at, it looks like we're looking at mammals, but that can't be true because a bicycle is not a mammal. Here we have the word. It's listed alphabetically. This is the word in Dene. And then we have the English definition. We also have audio for what appears to be all words, which is fantastic. It's a really, really, really good thing to have because it can be hard to figure out how to pronounce these for learners. There's also pictures for some items. And then there's a part of speech, so something like noun or verb. So here we have our search menu. We have a sort of search function. This is a bit more powerful than what we saw in the online Cree dictionary. So this one allows us to give an approximate form, which means that, it might be spelled incorrectly. The online Cree dictionary had that as well. If we go here, what we could actually have done if we wanted to look up a word like Pimoteo, which is he or she walks, we don't have to worry about vowel length marking, so whether or not this E has a macron on it, I don't believe the other vowels do, but they could. So we can just write that, and it should try every possible combination. You can see here it doesn't work because we actually have to select the Roman orthography as our input language, so you can see there it's pretty difficult, or pretty inconvenient at least. And here it gives us all the possible forms. So we have options without the macrons, we have options with the macrons. However, if I wanted to look up the form I walk, you could say Nipimotan. I don't believe it'll give us a result because that's an inflected form that is not given in the system, and they don't have a language model to do that inflection. Although if I wanted to write Moeo, again, it gives us an autocomplete, and I don't have to worry about the macron, which is in some systems they put this macron over the letter E. So we have this approximate. You might hear this referred to as spell relax, fuzzy searching. Pretty much just means, you don't have to have the exact correct spelling. Although if you do want to look for only words that have the exact spelling, you have that option here. Here's this contains option, which would give us every word that contains the string that we search for. So if I wanted to say, give me everything that starts, or everything that contains the letter A, and search words, you can see here it gives me every single word in Dene. Again, Dene Sultane likely, but that have the letter A in them. And the A can be anywhere. It can be at the start, in the middle, or at the end. And it can be with tones or without. We also have the option to search things that start with. So if we wanted to find a word that starts with the A, we could do that. That's pretty similar to just browsing alphabetically. There's the ends with option as well. So if we wanted to find every word that ends with the letter A, we can search there, and we're pretty good. Now, what you will notice is that this is giving us both the English definitions that end with A and the Dene definitions that end in A. That's why we get za, but then we get lidi, which doesn't have an A in Dene, but it translates as T in English, which has a letter A at the end. So that can be tricky. And then we have a wildcard. And what a wildcard allows you to do is basically put a character, it's usually a star, and then you can say, I want something that has AT at the beginning and ends with the letter B. Now, I don't actually know that any word like that exists in the language, so we're not going to use it. What we could do is say, I want everything that begins with a K, has some amount of characters in the middle, that's what the star means, and ends with an A. If we search that, it should give us a few options. So we can see here, it gives us this aspa. It is giving us also forms that don't necessarily end with the letter A, but that have the letter A after the letter K regardless. So that's what's happening in a word like this, is it's matching the K at the beginning, it's matching the A here, and it's saying, well, I don't really care if stuff is at the end. Although I'm not really sure why the system's not working here, because this doesn't begin with a K, so kind of odd. It does say up here that it's working on the cultural notes columns, which we can't actually see here, so maybe that has something to do with it. So you also have the opportunity to select the particular part of speech. So if you want to find a verb that begins with something or has a word in it, you can do that. You can also look for literal translations. So that would be like if you had a word in your language that meant like quick liquid, when in fact it translates to coffee in English. If you didn't want to include that because it's not a literal translation, you could check, say, only give me literal translations. So the architecture, the technologies that are working underneath this system are a bit more involved than what we saw with the Online Cree Dictionary. I believe actually the Online Cree Dictionary can do a lot of these things. It's just not as upfront about what you can do and how you can use it. And I don't believe there's a whole lot of instructional stuff on doing a lot of these things. I actually really like the way that this is presented. As with most things from First Voices, it's a very well done piece of language technology. Regardless, though, there is no language model underlying this technology. And what that means is it's all great if, for example, I want to look up willow and birch. But what if I want to look up the word willows, as in there are 2 willows? If I search that and let's just say default, which I think is a pretty open, willows comes up with this term willow, but not the plural form. And it also comes up with caterpillar, which is a bit odd. And it comes up with pillow. Not really sure why that is. It might just be because willow and pillow are 1 letter away. But let's click this word here and see what happens. We have some metadata, which is great. It tells us who's speaking, or rather who gave us the word, when it was gathered from, the word category, the part of speech, but it doesn't give us the plural form still. We can click this button. This just tells us again that it was recorded in 1955, and then this plays the sound, which again is fantastic. It takes a lot of time and effort to get sound for all of these things. So that's a bit odd that we can't actually find the plural form there. So what if we look up the word pelicans? Well, it's giving us the word pelican again. Let's click on this. This time we have the same sort of information. We're also given a literal translation into English, the word, the one with the big mouth, which makes sense. Pelicans have big mouths. And it does give us a related phrase as well, which is great, because now you can see it used in a sentence. This is probably why we are getting the search result when we write pelicans, because in the related phrases, it gives us, we saw pelicans, and then it gives us this phrase. Now, in terms of pelicans, the word itself, that seems to be this form here. So it looks like there is no H before the I. That's the main difference. If we click on this, we see here, again, this form seems to be pelicans. This seems to be the verb. We have metadata, which is helpful. Now, again, though, I'm able to sort of at least try and deduce that maybe this word here, this orachai, means pelicans, whereas orachai means pelican, singular. But I'm somewhat familiar with Dene languages, not as much as I am with Algonquian languages, but I'm somewhat familiar with Athabascan languages, and I'm a linguist, so I'm sort of trained to find these correspondences. But most speakers, I don't necessarily think are going to be able to make that jump in logic, at least not as upfront. In fact, they might see this and actually not see the difference because it's just a single letter, and if you're not paying really close attention, you might miss it. So that's a bit problematic. It's also a little bit disappointing that I can't look up the particular conjugations or multiple forms for a single word. Let's take a look at activities, though. If we take a look at this activity, say it slowly. We're given here, it's a verb, it's an event/activity, and we're given the form. But I'm not given any information about, which part is slowly, which part is say. Similarly, if I take a look at thinking and feeling, I get something like, do you understand? If we click that, we're not really given a breakdown of, what does this mean? What do the various parts mean? Let's say we're at the start and I want to look up the verb laugh. We don't have anything here. I can try C. And we get B because there's a one-letter difference between them. So the issues with this seem to be twofold. The first is there isn't an underlying language model, which means it only is going to be able to present to me the words that it has explicitly listed. And then on top of that, it actually seems to be lacking a lot of words and resources. That one is somewhat unavoidable. You can only put in so much work. This is probably a volunteer effort, and it's offered for free. So I'm not really going to, dock it points for not having every single possible word that I want, but, that is somewhat of an impediment. The last sort of non-intelligent or basic dictionary that we're going to look at is this Gitsan one. I believe that this was actually developed with First Voices as well. It uses a platform developed by Aidan Pine, who he's a master's student, I believe, at the University of Edinburgh, but he works with the National Research Council of Canada and has worked with Indigenous languages in Canada for a few years now. We can see it's a bit sparse to start with. There's not a whole lot you can do. You can type a word in here. You can click search. You can click browse, which gives us a alphabetical order, which, again, fantastic. You have the random option. So we can click here and get some random words. This can be fun for just discovering words. So here we have the word for prairie. You click on prairie, it doesn't give you anything. That's a bit weird. It seems like there's audio for it. I'm not going to try and pronounce these because I'm sure I will fail. I will give you perhaps one attempt. I'll just show you one attempt. So something like la mouse. I'm sure that wasn't good, so I apologize. We have here this little bookmark looking thing, and this is to actually sort of save a word. So you can click that and it'll save it. If I go to my bookmarks, it should be there. It has audio as well. Again, I won't play it, but that's pretty good to see. If we look at some more words, we have to hit, to strike. Again, you click on it, you're not really given anything. Well, let's try a search. Let's look for the word dog. You'll notice I use dog a lot, possibly because it's very common in languages, but also I just really like dogs. So here we have two matches. They're highlighted in blue, which I really like. And it looks like the word in Gitsan for dog is us. And this is the English translation to the right. It also gives us a sort of fuzzy searched version. If we were trying to look up doc or doc, hopefully I'm pronouncing that close to correct, then it recognizes that we might spell it with a G instead of this K apostrophe, and that means to be deaf. If we wanted to take a look at these and see, what are the other forms? How would I say I am deaf or you are deaf? There's not a whole lot that we can actually do. We could try clicking this. This is usually indicating there's a menu of some sort. In this case, it just brings us to 3 different recordings. It does give us a plural form, though. Doesn't really tell us, though, what the actual way to say I or you or he is. And it might just be the case that in this language, it's like English. You just say I, duck. But, we don't actually know, and there's not a whole lot of indication there. So that's a bit disappointing. It looks like this one, too, doesn't have this sort of underlying language model. So if there are plural forms given, that's because the creators of this website went through the painstaking effort of listing the plural form of every single singular form that they had. So these are the basic ideas behind a basic dictionary. They're very similar to a paper dictionary. You're only given what's been written in the dictionary. In this, you're only given what's been hand coded by the researchers. There's no mechanism that automatically gives you the plural form or automatically gives you the first person or second person or third person or anything like that. As we discussed in the basics video, the introduction video, language models are not super easy to create, and that's probably why we're not seeing them in these dictionaries. they take a bit of time to create, and you have to, you have to have some amount of expertise in what you're doing, in the coding aspect of that, and there has to be documentation or a lot of data about the languages. And so that's why a lot of these dictionaries are not so-called intelligent dictionaries. And that's not to say that they're bad or anything like that. It's fantastic that we live in a world now where if you're interested in this sort of stuff, you can just look it up online rather than having to track down a book somewhere or having to live in a community with speakers of that language. So next, what we're going to focus on are intelligent dictionaries. We're going to focus on one in particular, and that's called Itwewena. It's for Plains Cree. The reason that we're focusing on that is because it's, as far as I know, the most comprehensive intelligent dictionary that we have available for Indigenous languages of North America. I've been involved with its creation, but that's not the reason that I'm focusing on it. It's just that we've spent a lot of time creating a language model underneath it that allows you to do a lot of cool things. Although we are lacking in some other areas that we're trying to catch up in, and so we'll talk about that as well.